Hello, and welcome to Let's Try. This is Starbirds. I was given a key for Starbirds, and I am very appreciative to the publisher for doing that. I hope they do not resent my my review of this game because it's going to get dark. This one's going to get a little dark because I want to start by saying that games are inherently political. I do believe that. I think that it's very difficult to make any kind of statement in a game without it directly referring to your inherent politics. I think that games have a message, and there's very few ways to avoid doing that. I think if a game tries to avoid having a message, that in itself is political. And I think that Starbirds is a game that kind of avoids being political in some ways, and I think fails catastrophically in a lot of ways. It is really interesting. It's a game that I think we should study, honestly. I want to start by saying that I think mechanically as a game, I think that Starbirds is very good. I just want to go ahead and say that right away. If you enjoy logistics games, if you enjoy puzzles, you will probably enjoy Starbirds. I'm going to go ahead and get that out of the way because as I talk about this game, you're going to understand that my reflection of it is actually quite cynical, and it's more reflected on the themes of Starbirds than anything else. I'm gonna play one of the previous stages that I've already beaten because I want to kind of cover some of the basic mechanics and show off the gameplay at its face. But basically we're Starbirds. We are out exploring space. We're trying to get to the bottom of this strange material that we've discovered, and we're collecting it, and we're also getting closer to this kind of like convergence point where this strange material is originating from. The gameplay more or less encompasses exploring planetoids and exploiting them for their resources so that we can build certain structures and also upgrade our starbase. And really it comes down to the core of the gameplay comes down to a logistics based one, a logistics puzzle basically, and a topological puzzle, strange enough. So let me go through some of the dialogue because it is going to wrap around and relate to some of my cynicism when it comes to the politics of this game. These interferences are a nightmare, but the readings look like there might be a strange lit close by, possibly even two more. Let's start somewhere. Results, Stella. We need results. We're going to be exploring these planetoids and trying to find strange lits, and the victory will be determined by our ability to find and exploit them. So we are going to start with these two planetoids, and it just tells us right away this one has water, and I believe that is silicone, and this one has silicone and titanium. It costs us research points to explore planetoids. This game is not time-based, which I actually really appreciate, although I guess there is an element to it because the mastering of this game relates to how high you can kind of pump up the inputs of different materials. So like for instance, we're gonna go visit this one, and something I have found, I think this is kind of weird, but it doesn't show you the resources until you settle on the planet. So I like to settle basically where the light meets the darkness because that actually relates to how we're going to get our power. So we've got on here titanium and silicone, and this is our basic output is a rocket ship. So we're going to be throwing down some extractors just right away on silicone, and getting ourselves some silicone. And what we want to do is now pipe it in to our input, which is basically our output. We're inputting our silicone to our output, which is our rocket. The rocket is going to be launching off, and it's going to be now bringing that silicone back to our base. Then we're going to be getting missions like these ones, which will upgrade the starbase with things like engine rooms and corridors. And these have no real mechanical purpose other than that it gives us an extra station level, which improves our score when it comes to the completion of this mission. And it also gives us some credits. Now, we've already touched upon part of my issue with the game, which is the credits. And I'm gonna be talking a lot about this. I can't really avoid it. But I'm going to try and get through the mechanics first because I really do want to show off the game. I actually do enjoy this game, which is it's a very bizarre ambivalence I feel towards it, because on one hand I really enjoy it. I actually think it's quite a lot of fun, but on the other hand I can't help but be faced with this constant, just kind of bizarre confrontation with the game's sort of core politics, which is that you cannot have a utopia without capitalism. That is the core of, to me, what the political message of this game, without trying too hard, is that you cannot have a utopia without capitalism. And I just can't possibly disagree more with this. It just clashes with my soul, is the best I can put this. And I think that this is something we have to, I have to come to terms with as a person, maybe as a content creator. Now, people out there are going to be saying, I don't know, I'm inventing a person now, but I know that there's this tendency for people to say, well, it's not that deep, my guy. It's just a video game, and you're thinking about it too much. You know what? If you want to exist like that, that's fine. But I don't think it's ever unfair to read into the messaging of a game and to analyze it. And I am analyzing it. I'm analyzing this game. But anyway, let's go through the mechanics so far. So now we're collecting water, and we've got some missions that require water. Now this one's also going to require sulfur, but since we're already getting the water, why don't we go ahead and accept that one? This one's just going to require water. I tend to go for credits. I tend to always take missions for credits, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why soon enough, but for the time being, let's just go ahead and explore a little bit and try and find, that was I believe, sulfur that we also are going to need for certain things. We don't have sulfur here, but we do have uranium, which we are going to need. So let's go ahead and grab some uranium, and uranium is going to be extremely important. And that'll we'll kind of touch on that in a second too. And I'm going to go ahead and use something called a pipe hub here. And the pipe hub, it makes it quite easy to kind of manage the sort of topological logistics pipes in this game, which is a major part of the puzzle. It's a little weird because, you know, the logistics challenge of this game is not that difficult. It's really just like, you know, inputs and outputs. This game is not really like a Factorio like. It's not like Factorio. It's not, most of the challenges are not really an automation based one. It's mostly a topological one, because like piping in different resources, like I can now split this uranium and like make a new launch pad here that costs me, by the way, 100 credits. And now I can split this up, and now I have 2 uranium outputs. And you know, later when we go ahead and build, like, I think they call them fusion reactors, but they aren't basically oh, we don't have nuclear reactors on this one. Okay, well, later on you get nuclear reactors, and that's something you're gonna need. And they're pushing me now towards the excavation hub. Let's go ahead and take a mission for tech points. I will occasionally be taking that. I basically take the mission that I think I can complete right away. Like I say, there's no time. This is not really a time-based game. You can take as long as you want. The major problems involved are really just like, I don't know, trying to find the right resources and figure out how you want to manage them. Still no sulfur, huh? Okay, well, let's do this last one over here. There's our sulfur. Okay. We're probably not going to be able to, yeah, we can't build our launch pad because we do need some tech points, so we'll go ahead and wait for this guy. There we go. And well, we probably don't need more tech points right away. So let's go ahead and place down this guy. There's our sulfur, I believe. Yeah, okay, we can place just a extractor on that one. So I mean, this is kind of how I play the game, is and I think that this is intended, is first you want to get all of your basic resources shipped to your station, and then afterwards, once the resources gotten shipped to your station a few times and you've completed a few quests and it's no longer relevant, like for instance, now I'm not getting any missions for things like sulfur, then you want to route those resources to other planetoids so that you can start turning them into more complex things. So like for instance, acid, I know this is sulfur and water. So we can start combining sulfur and water into acid. And so I know that I can complete this pretty quickly. So we're gonna go ahead and take that mission. I'm gonna go ahead and complete this one for more credits. You are basically almost always bottlenecked by credits. One thing you can do, and I think that this is kind of an admission of defeat in some ways of the balance of the game, is that you can place a little car and play this little mini game where you have them collecting gems, which will give you tech points and credits. To me, it feels a little odd. Like there's not a lot of friction. In fact, this game has basically no friction except for the one when it comes to credits. And I think that's why it rubs me the wrong way as much as it does, is because I am constantly confronted by the fact that in order for us to exploit all of these different planetoids, in order for us to have a bright future where we're exploring space, we need to have capitalism. That feels like the predominant messaging of this game. Whether it intends to do that or not, that really feels to me like what this game's core messaging is. Because I am constantly gated by how much money I have. I can buy buildings with credits. So let's start completing the actual core mission of this stage, right? So I'm gonna need a special building. We need the excavation hub. So we've placed the excavation hub, and now we have a new mission. The excavation hub is going to need water. So now we can start looking at how like logistics work in this game. So what we need actually before I get back into that map is we need a landing pad. So we're going to place the landing pad here, and I'm just going to go ahead and pipe it right to that. And you got to make sure you're always completing these missions. They won't auto-complete. And that kind of bothers me as well, if I'm being honest, because it's again like that. I'm constantly being bashed over the face by the fact that I am doing missions for money, and I need that money to complete more missions, right? So here's our water over here. Now I can take this water and I can route it to our landing pad over here. And now instead of going back to our space station, that those ships are coming in and piping that water to our facility here. And they're going to tell me I might need something else, or I think that'll actually complete this. So that's going to be receiving water. Yeah, okay, so never mind. As soon as it receives 100 water, then we'll get our first strangelet. And we got to complete those missions. And oh yeah, we're also trying to make acid. So let's make acid. So we're going to be making acid by combining sulfur and water. Actually, this is not a bad place to do that since the water is getting piped in here. Let's go ahead and throw down another landing pad. You don't have to do it this way, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it this way. So I'm going to throw down a chemical lab, which is what we need to turn sulfur and water into acid. And then I'm going to go ahead and instead, we're going to delete this pipe. And I'm going to make a pipe hub. And then we'll route that over there. And now we're splitting the water between this guy here and this guy here. So the water will also go to this chemical lab. And now what I'm going to do is we want to make sure we're getting sulfur. So we're going to go ahead and pipe in our sulfur to this planetoid here. So the sulfur is arriving there. And now we are creating acid, and we can actually just pipe it over here. One thing I like to do, because, you know, like silicone, I don't think it, I mean, we are still getting missions for silicone. So that it is still relevant, right? One thing we can do is you can combine resources into one output. So now this rocket ship is outputting both silicone and acid. And like I said, there's no real time gate here. Like I don't care how long it takes for this mission to be completed. And it's one of the reasons I'm happy to split the water here for this guy, right? Is because it just doesn't matter. The time does not matter in this game. It really just, you know, like as long as there's any output at all, that's fine. Like, okay, the acid is now complete. We can start looking at our next mission. This guy here wants uranium, which we're already collecting. I do actually really appreciate some of the interface stuff in this game. Like it has a little green check mark, and it even tells us, hey, we're getting like 4 per minute, 5 per minute. It's climbing because our average is climbing. And actually, I think one thing I'd like to do is upgrade this station. That does actually cost tech points, by the way. So like there is reasons to collect tech points, but I just often find that I'm more strictly gated by money than I am by tech. So let's do solar sails, because that's silicone and acid, which we're already making. And in fact, I think we actually have everything we need here. So then let's go ahead and delete this pipe here, and then put a pipe splitter, split this up here. And now we've got ourselves some acid here. We'll want another pipe here, and that all costs money. That's all money that we're spending to make that happen. And we'll pipe it in here, and now that's getting silicone and acid still. This is our first strangelet completed, so this is done now. We don't even need this, so that's done. And then what we want is a component lab. So let's go ahead and make a component lab. I don't really care about this titanium right now. A lot of what I mean, the way I play this game, honestly, is kind of like I'm placing things to temporarily complete the mission, because this is not how I want all of my stuff to end up when it comes to like, I don't know, mastering the stage. When it comes to like actually having proper facilities or proper resource management, it's not like how I want things to end up. So I'm really just kind of building for the short term, and then I'll delete it all and manage it better later. So okay, now they're telling me that how these solar panels don't produce very much energy because we are apparently just like too far away from a sun. Seems like the particle cloud around Ravsicle filters too many wavelengths, preventing maximum efficiency, but right at the zenith, the light intensity should still be sufficient for the panels to work correctly. The area with the strongest starlight is highlighted while previewing solar panels, and you could have maybe seen that I am trying to build around this, although I do find that the kind of this game has a little bit of a procedural thing going on, and so you end up in these kind of bizarre situations. I don't know if I can't dismantle this, so that's just stuck there, and so I can't really make the most out of that little pocket of sunlight. I can try my best to finagle it, but like it's a little bit finicky, as you can see. Oh, there we go. Okay, I got it. And now I can connect these solar panels, and hopefully, yeah, we can wire. I mean, it's right there. We can just wire it there. I mean, later they're gonna submit to the fact that we need nuclear fission in order to continue progressing, right? And now we're making those electronic parts. So okay, there's more going on in this game. There's more things, but I mean, this is now like the basics of how this game operates. You're routing materials to different planets. You are kind of gated by these craters. Craters are actually creating an extra challenge or extra friction, because you need small craters in order to place certain buildings, and you need large craters so that you can place both launching pads and landing pads. All right, so you are gated behind that. This is an easy one. We'll take that for titanium, and then I'll go and start shipping off titanium. In fact, we'll take some more tech points there. So the restrictions of the planetoids are a friction point, but more prominent than that for me is like, I can't place all of the buildings that I need and want until I have enough money to pay for it all, right? And that is just always true. It is always true. Like, you know, and now I have 900 credits, so now I can basically do what I want and actually get down to the brass tacks of the game, and actually play the game the way I kind of want to play it, which is to just like, you know, place down buildings and route things together and solve the sort of topological puzzle of the game and solve the logistics puzzle of the game, right? And manage those resources. But when it comes down to the politics of all of this, like it rubs me the wrong way, because the game almost completely ignores, very, very conveniently skips over the fact that we are using money to pay for all of this. Like, we're using space credits or whatever, bird bucks, whatever you want to call it, right? And it is an admission that in this utopian idealist future where we get to explore space and solve the greatest mysteries of the universe, we still need to pay for things. We need to pay for all of these buildings. Someone needs to pay for it all, right? And I just think that that is miserable. I think it's miserable, and it's not utopian. It's a betrayal to utopia. I think right now that it kind of feels like a slap in the face to me. I would love to be immersed in a utopian game, with an idealist vision of the future. One that actually does kind of ask the question, what would a future look like where we get to explore space and do whatever we want and actually solve some of the universe's greatest mysteries, and maybe have a little bit of a fantasy of that utopian future. And the game, the first thing it does is make you pay for stuff, and I just think it's just miserable. It makes me sad. It makes me sad, and it's impossible for me to ignore, and it really kind of wrecks this whole thing for me a little bit, because we can't have this little immersive, cozy, friendly, a utopian game without this capitalism. Now, you might be asking, wow, Bingle, Big Simply, you're being really mean about this. You're being very cruel and about this. What alternative would you suggest? Well, I don't know. You have all of these resources, right? How about instead of completing these resources for money, then the game, rather than asking you to complete missions for money, it just says, hey, these buildings require resources to be built. That would be really easy. It'd be it'd be slightly different, but it's like, instead of completing this thing, I'm completing this mission to improve the hub. I mean, that's valid, honestly. This part doesn't bother me as much because you're upgrading your capital ship. Sure, that's fine. But rather than complete it for money, you then have like your starship work as a factory of producing components, and you say, okay, I need 5 pipe hubs. Okay, we need 20 titanium and so much sulfur, and we need some circuit boards, and Bob's your uncle. There you go. That makes sense to me. I am not above the idea that we need resources to produce things. Of course, that's true. That's always going to be true, right? Why did we have to distill that to completing missions for money and then paying money? I am confronted with all of these bizarre questions. Who is this money going towards? Where is that money going? And what is it doing exactly? Is the money paying to produce the things that the resources are making? Why didn't we just I don't know. It just bothers me. I can't really put it any other way than that. Maybe I'm thinking about it too hard. Sure, it's a cute and cuddly game about little Starbirds, right? Maybe I'm thinking about it too hard. But you know what? This is Kurtzkazat, and these are these are major YouTubers that tout themselves as they put a lot of effort into these informative kind of videos with big sources that kind of distill really complex ideas, right? And I just think it's a little strange that their foray into a video game is doing this. It just seems bizarre. I feel like they must have asked this question, right? They ask very big questions all of the time. Can we have a future without nuclear energy? Can we why have we not been contacted by aliens? Why, if there was a big mystery of the universe, how would we go about solving it? They've asked questions like, how do we move the Earth? How do they've done that. They actually done the effort of analyzing that question, and even asked scientists and source scientists hell, what are the physics and mechanics of moving the Earth? Say there was a big asteroid coming towards Earth and we needed to move the planet a few degrees. What if we needed to move the entire solar system? This is a genuine question that I've seen them analyze. And yet, when it comes to their game with the utopian future of let's explore space and solve the universe's greatest mysteries, we can't ask that question without submitting to this idea of collecting money. I don't know why it is, but that really bothers me. It rubs me really raw. It really does. And it kind of ruins this game for me a little bit. I'm a little bit cynical when it comes to I guess people and games and art in general trying to dodge what is currently happening in the world, I know it's one of those things people want to escape, and I think that this is a game that could offer escapism, and that's why I guess it bothers me as much as it does, is because I am not escaping. I'm not escaping this, and yet the game feels fit to kind of dodge that issue. So, I guess on one hand, like, I feel like I guess a cozy game can't be cozy without some kind of friction and without some kind of cynicism, but the game doesn't feel cynical about it. It feels like it's submitting to that reality. And like, this is all before we get to nuclear energy, which is an entire another thing. Like I don't know if there's honestly a much more political thing that you can put in your game than nuclear energy. I'm just going to go ahead and address this right away. I think that nuclear energy is something that can be positive, and I think it's something that we do have to eventually acknowledge. We do need nuclear energy. That's what I'm saying. I don't like it for a lot of reasons, but I acknowledge that it is necessary, right? And that is, I think, Kurzgesagt's stance, more or less, is that nuclear energy is one of those things we're going to have to make use of it. We can't rely purely on wind and solar, right? But I am under the opinion, and I think this is fair to say, that you cannot have nuclear energy under capitalism. That's my official stance about it. And I know I'm getting really political here, but like it doesn't get much more political than this, right? When you're talking about a utopian future that's making all kinds of claims, like you can't have a utopian future without basically exploiting all of our different resources and all of our different technologies and all of our ways of producing power, all of our production resources, right? Nuclear energy is one of those things you can't get away from acknowledging. We have to address nuclear energy. Like we gotta, right? Like that's what we got to do, right? I don't think you can have it under capitalism. I really firmly believe that, because the problem is that capitalism really encourages cutting as many corners as possible. Like we're seeing it in real time right now, right? Capitalism really encourages some of the worst decision making. It incentivizes profit over safety. It incentivizes profit over humanity. And it incentivizes profit over the basic safety measures that you need to take when it comes to nuclear energy. And nuclear energy is one of those things that if you're not being safe in every possible way, it can end catastrophically. That's a fact. And we've already seen it a couple times, and people like to wave those things away as being like horrible examples of nuclear energy. Aren't those beautiful examples of why we should not be using this technology until we get away from capitalism? Those are great examples of this technology not yet working for us, because we are encouraging some really bad tendencies, some very bad habits. That needs to be acknowledged. If I have to acknowledge nuclear energy, then we have to acknowledge that it can't exist under capitalism. I guess the thing that bothers me is that I don't feel like the game is necessarily acknowledging those things. I think that it's kind of sweeping them under the carpet. Maybe I'm super wrong about that. Maybe I am judging the game unfairly for that reason, but it feels like it is kind of ignoring that. It's kind of taking for granted these concepts like nuclear energy. So I don't know. Maybe on one hand, I'm out of my depth with this one, because it forces me to acknowledge some political concepts that I do not have mental capacity to argue with people about, and yet they do bother me. And it's a cute and cuddly little game, and it's supposed to be I feel like it is a source of escapism, but I am not escaping. I am crashing. I'm crashing out with the realities that this game is forcing me to acknowledge. All right, so this is a unique mission in that they do not give you any small craters, so that you can place some of these other. Basically, I think it's just a crucible. So now we're going to be researching the explosives that let us make small craters. If you're wondering, I don't really have a huge issue with this. It's a big whatever. I mean, like, it makes sense. I don't think we generally care about these planetoids. I mean, one nice thing about this game, I guess, is that the things that we're exploiting, these planetoids, don't seem like they're devoid of life. They're just asteroids, basically. Like, we're just kind of coming and going and, like, you know, taking what we need from asteroids. If they looked like Earth-likes, then I'd have a little bit of grief with that. If they're a little cute and cuddly little alien sheep on them, then I might have a problem. But, like, they're not. They're just, you know, they're asteroids, whatever. So now that we can blow up things, we're going to be blowing up a crater. We do have to actually put some thought into this one, because we got to plan basically where we want to have our, you know, major input of resources, because we can only have a crucible on like one planet. We're gated in that regard by strange points, which, you know, it's not money. I'll give them that. You're using the resource that you gain by understanding these strange rocks, which that to me is actually great. I wish we were doing more of that. We're going to be using this big planet because obviously this big planet is going to be useful for having a lot of space. So I'm just going to blow up a small crater here, and we're going to immediately throw a crucible on it. This crucible is also going to require energy, so good. I probably should have checked that there was feasible energy nearby. I do like how things place in this game. Like, there is a kind of a built-in logic to it, which, you know, I think works quite well. Like, I like how the solar panels have this kind of like honeycomb shape, this hexagon shape, so they fit together nicely. We got to distract Stella, and they're stealing the strange rock so that they can make explosives. So the next major thing that we are really going to need is, I believe, this light alloy, because it's also required for other things. So light alloy is aluminum and iron. Sorry, aluminum and iron. We could also do aluminum and silicone. So I wonder if there's a place where we could do both. I mean, this guy right here, we could pipe both of those in, actually. Can we upgrade this guy? Yes, we can. By the way, upgrades are kind of weirdly handled in this game. It's handled by a meta progression where the stars that you're receiving for completing a stage as best as you can will could be converted into points that you can then spend on upgrades. And so the meta upgrades allow you to upgrade buildings. So like initially I couldn't upgrade this crucible. What's weird about that is because the points you get, or the stars you get from completing the mission, are kind of based on how much I'm inputting resources. So therefore you kind of need the upgrades to complete the missions more easily, or at least to get more stars and therefore get more upgrades and therefore complete them better. Like, it's a little odd. I don't think it's problematic, but it is a little kind of a strange thing. I think the way you're meant to kind of handle that is just like play the game, play through the campaign, buy some upgrades you think are immediately helpful, that'll help you with future missions. And then once you've gotten a few upgrades, you can redo, like, there's a little bit of replayability, you understand a bit better, you go back and you know, finish those other missions with you know, more tools. Nuclear fission would work even under those conditions, but we must be extra careful. The cold won't save us from a meltdown. So there you go. There's our foray into nuclear fission. Oh, here's our last one, nuclear reactor. And I think this planet is very much meant to be where you place all of your manufacturing, because it's also got nuclear, right? So we're researching that nuclear. Make sure we're always completing missions. There's our nuclear reactor. Then we're gonna plunk that down. In a nutshell, the more uranium you feed it with, the higher its output, right? So we're just kind of like taking for granted that this thing will never like melt down. Don't get me wrong, I'm not like, you know, I understand our examples of nuclear energy are really bad. They are kind of, in a lot of ways, the worst case scenario. But I think it's foolish to ignore them as examples, since as long as we have two of them, you know, right? Two pretty bad ones. In fact, three if you consider the one in Japan. That one was almost disastrous as well. I think 3 represents a trend. I think it's fair to acknowledge that at that point. So we've got our energy, so we can pretty much do whatever we want at this point. So I think we got 1 crater there and we got 1 crater there. So we could do another major resource. So let's just go ahead and do this. So we'll have this crucible here. We'll have this power there. That's going to be getting more than enough energy because the nuclear energy is just better by far than the solar panels, right? Then we're going to pipe this in here. Then we're going to pipe this in here, and then we're going to pipe this out to this, and we'll just have this one also piping out. It would be nice if we had 1 more crater, because then we could split up strong alloy and whatever this other stuff is. I'm just going to pipe this oxygen home. There we go. And then go ahead and pipe it back in. And I mean, that's like in terms of completing missions later, it can be as simple as that. It's just like, oh, yeah, I mean, we already have that resource. It's just being used to produce something. So I'll just pipe it back home for a nanosecond, and then, you know, we're fine. So we want to make this stuff, which means we're piping in titanium and iron. So let's pipe in this titanium here. Oh, in fact, that's both. This is one of the reasons why making a pipe hub is nice, is because then it's very easy to reroute. And in fact, I should even like get rid of these guys and make a pipe hub here. It also just makes managing your wires a lot more easy. Okay, so now we've got 2 outputs. This is the one that wants power, right? And in fact, we got nuclear right there. So let's go ahead and make a nuclear reactor. And I'm just going to give it as much nuclear material as it wants. 4, 5, and then all to this. And then just give it all to this. So this is going to be producing, I believe, 6 to 10. It really it's dependent on how much uranium it's receiving. So there we go. That's 1 more done. That'll give us another strange point. So I believe we can now make another crater somewhere if we want. Honestly, we probably could have put the crucible here. I do think the wires that show you where rockets are going are a little hard to read at a certain point. We're gonna pipe these all the way over here. One thing we could do, since we're now receiving missions that require the strong alloy, is I could just delete that. And we probably did just lose some resources, but it's fine. It doesn't matter. And now, yes, it does want power. And in fact, it wants 15 power. So we are going to need another nuclear reactor. Give it all the nuclear, all that uranium, and then pipe it in here, and then we'll just connect it up. Could probably also put some solar panels down. I mean, I probably could have powered it purely with solar, admittedly. So at this point, if I press this button, I would complete the mission. But if I was like really like wanting to get as much points as possible, what I would do at this point is you look at this supply and you can see all of these check marks, right? So you want to maximize this as much as possible. You want to try like finish the stage where you have like 3 stars in all of this stuff, even goop, you know, like even goop. In fact, there might even be some hidden ones here, like scrap, for instance. I don't know if that's one. Ash apparently is one that they want. I'm pretty sure they just want everything, right? And they also want you to complete your starbase, which currently I'm working on living quarters. So now that I've finished that one, what I would finish the strange rock over here, what I would do is then take this strong material and pipe it towards, so then we'll be sending out strong material. So yeah, basically you want to finish this starbase, get all of the upgrades. The upgrades become increasingly difficult to obtain because the resources required become more and more complex. So you get into things like glass, which is going to require either quartz or like aluminum and ceramic, which is also a complex material because it requires carbon, which is also a complex material. So like things like glass become difficult. Hydrocarbon is also kind of difficult. Mechanically, it is a good game. I really want to make that clear. It is a good game. So when I talk as vehemently as I do about the themes, I really need it to be, I need to stress that it's only because those themes bother me as much as they do that I'm even mentioning it. I think it's just like a weird clash of like this utopian idealist future clashing with a reality of like, you know, well, we still need money though. I don't know why that bothers me, because there's so many games that have money in them, but it is treated with cynicism. Like if you compare this to something like Stardew Valley, for example, Stardew Valley is extremely cynical when it comes to how it portrays capitalism and money. You have a big supermarket that's trying to kind of run the whole town out of business and destroy its major infrastructure. You even have your like little town folk corner store dude who's ripping you off. Like even the corner store dude is ripping you off, and so there's this cynicism when it comes to capitalism. I don't think it's really a good idea to have a game that embraces capitalism and embraces the exchange of money for goods and resources without acknowledging that cynicism, without that friction being acknowledged. I don't think that's a good idea, personally. That's my opinion. And if you try and ignore it, then it gets weird. It gets to be a little bit weird and a little bit hypocritical, if I'm being honest, because you can't have an idealist future and acknowledge these kind of problematic societal mechanics without acknowledging that they are problematic. If you're just going to sweep it under the carpet, then like what is the message of this game? Eventually that becomes the message, in my opinion. Eventually it becomes loud enough for me personally that I don't hear anything else. I don't hear anything else. I don't hear about what the mystery is of the strange materials. I don't hear the idea that we're exploring space, that we're solving these mysteries. I don't hear the core concepts, like where is the sense of community? Where is community in this idealist future? That they're working together? If they're working together, then why do they need money? But in any case, I do appreciate having access to playing this game, to being given the privilege to try this game. And I really need to underline, I do like it mechanically. I actually really enjoy it. I'll be playing more of this in my off time, and it will continue to bother me. Let that be my message for this video. If you did enjoy this, I know I haven't been around, but I plan on being around in the future, so please stick around, hit the like button, consider subscribing, because we all have to keep this machine going, don't we? And I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy.